William Booth's father built houses in Nottingham, England, for the children of the Industrial Revolution. Samuel Booth lived to make money. When in 1843 his business collapsed, it was the end of his world. Within months, Samuel was dead. 13-year-old William Booth had to leave school when the business failed. So now, he commenced what was really an education in poverty. His main schoolroom was the pawn shop where he'd taken work.
Pawnbroking was people brought in their goods from their home and sold their goods to have a little bit of money to put bread on the table. And he knew, too, that many people were coming in and selling a little bit of what they had in their home or pawning off a little bit of what they had in their home, not in order to put bread on the table for the children, but in order to buy more alcohol for that evening.
West of Nottingham, in rural Derbyshire, sits the town of Ashbourne. There, in this house, Catherine Mumford was born.
She had a curvature of her spine, which she suffered with her whole life, and she was sometimes bedridden for long periods of time. So she read a lot. She read Methodist magazines and other religious works by a number of leading Methodist theologians. She was reading them at a very young age. She read the Bible every day. By the time she was 12, I think she'd read it cover to cover 8 times.
In the Booth household in Nottingham, William heard much less about the Bible and God.
However, there was a neighbor couple who had their eyes on William, and they began to take William to the Wesleyan Chapel.
The Wesleyan Chapel held 2,000 and was large enough to attract well-known revivalist preachers. One of them came for 6 weeks when William was 17. He was to mark William's life permanently. This was James Corey. Following one of his meetings, William went to this room and resolved that God would have all there was of him. When a young friend named Will Sanson persuaded William to join him in a mission to Nottingham's poorest district, William had stepped into his natural space. They began to visit the sick. After visiting, they would take a chair outside and stand on it to preach.
In 1849, William left Nottingham and came to London, and he worked in the Walworth Road as an apprentice to a pawnbroker's shop, where he only had 1 day off a week and worked more than 12 hours a day.
Now, at the same time that William moved to London, there was a woman by the name of Catherine Mumford living in Brixton with her parents. And a man by the name of Mr. Rabbits, a mutual friend of the Mumford family and someone who was helping to support William Booth financially in his lay preaching, introduced Catherine Mumford and William Booth. By their own accounts, it was love at first sight.
When William was 22, Rabbits told him he ought to preach full-time. "There is no way for me," Booth answered. "Nobody wants me." But Rabbits opened doors. So William Booth left pawnbroking for good and became an evangelist. Frequently apart as he traveled, he and Catherine wrote letters almost every day.
Catherine Booth was the thinker. She grew up in a home where she was self-educated or home-educated, and she read a lot of theology books. William was a doer. William was a doer all his life. William was an activist.
They were a perfect blend. On June 16th of 1855, Catherine Mumford and William Booth were married. 3 years later, the Reverend William Booth took charge of the Methodist New Connection Chapel in Gateshead near Newcastle. Catherine was struggling. She was pregnant with their 3rd child. Her health was not strong, and she felt restless to give more in ministry.
Women could preach, but only on an occasional basis. Only on a given Sunday they might stand to preach.
Remember, it would be many years before women would be able to vote. It would be many years before women would be able to enter Oxford or Cambridge.